When I was older, the hunger didn't disappear, it just changed. It was no longer in the body alone, it moved into something else. People started talking, but not the way they used to. Conversations became shorter, careful. Sometimes they stopped before they even began. Words became something you had to think about before you said them, and even after. I was old enough to understand one thing. Saying the wrong thing could follow you for a very long time. At school, we didn't learn the way children should. There were no stories, no questions, only answers, and we repeated them again and again. Loud voices, strong words, words we didn't fully understand, but we said them anyway, because everyone else did, because not saying them felt worse. Sometimes people were called out in front of everyone, neighbors, teachers, people we saw every day. They stood in the center while others spoke around them, voices rising, one after another, not asking, not listening, only judging. I remember one afternoon. The air was heavy, no wind, no movement. Even the sound felt slower. A man stood in the middle of the crowd, head lowered, hands still. I didn't know what he had done. No one explained it to me, but I remember his face. Not anger, not fear, something quieter, something like he had already stepped away from it all, as if the noise no longer reached him. My sister held my hand tightly. Her fingers were cold. She didn't understand, but she felt something was wrong. Children always do. She looked up at me, as if I might explain it. I didn't. I couldn't. After that day, things at home became even quieter. My mother spoke less. When she did, her voice was softer than before, as if the walls could hear, as if the air itself was listening. My father stopped speaking almost completely. He sat in the same place every evening, not moving, not reacting. Sometimes I wondered if silence had become his way of hiding, or his way of surviving. We ate together, but not really together. No one asked questions, no one told stories. Even small words felt too heavy. My sister still tried. She would ask simple things. Why is everyone shouting? Why was that man alone? Her voice was soft, but in that silence it felt loud, too loud. My mother would gently stop her. A look, a small shake of the head, that was enough. I watched everything, not just what people said, but what they avoided saying, the pauses, the unfinished sentences, the way people looked at each other and then looked away. That's how I learned. That's how you stayed safe. At school, we shouted louder than ever. At home, we spoke softer than ever. And somewhere in between, something inside us changed. We learned to have two voices, one for the outside world and one we kept hidden. Sometimes I wondered which one was real. My sister didn't have two voices yet. She still lived in one world where questions were natural and answers were expected. I began to understand that she would have to learn the same way I did, slowly, quietly, without anyone explaining it. That was the second thing I learned in life. You can survive without food, and you can survive without saying what you think. You can even survive without asking why. as long as you know when to speak and when to stay silent.